Hi guys, my name is Alyssa and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about the sixth house. Are you guys excited? Because you shouldn't be, because the sixth house is not fun. I'm just going to start off with this so you kind of know the tone of the video. A long time ago, ancient astrologers used to believe that the sixth house was a malefic house. And I think there's people who still believe this. If there's a planet in the sixth house, it's going to kill your entire chart. It's going to bring it down. Not because the sixth house is going to kill you, but because the sixth house is the natural go-to victimization. Work hard, take on all of the things, do all of the stuff, and not let anyone else do it, and then be like, no one helps me with anything and I'm never going to go anywhere. And since we all have a sixth house, there's all a place in our lives where this affects us. Now, if you have a lot of planets in the sixth house, this will affect you more. Fast forward now to what we call it. It's the house of routine and daily shit and your health. So your health and your daily routine. So it's a house of your health. But more often than not, this is where you're going to find transits and stuff shitting all over your house of health. You're never going to look at your house of health and be like, this is why I'm eternally healthy. Because we're all fucking dying. We're all dying. You're born to die. Thank you, Lana. And that's your sixth house. Your sixth house will always be a cause of stress in your life because it is your house of illness. Now, I'm not going to call it the house of illness. I've just called it that right now and like before, and I have a few times already. I'm going to let it be the house of health. The sixth house is a cadent house, and if you remember from the third house video, cadent means to fall away. So cadent brings in the next quadrant of houses by letting the quadrant that it's in transition into the next angular house, because we have angular house, succeedent house, and cadent house, and those houses all fall in one quadrant. In a way, the sixth house finishes what the first house left off, so that your bottom half of your chart can be one complete picture before we get into the top half. So the sixth house is going to lead into the seventh, which is a house of relationships. So it's like what you need to do for yourself before you get yourself involved in a relationship, taking care of you and who you are on a day-to-day basis. That directly finishes off your first house, which is your identity, which is you, your ascendant. If the first house is all about what you believe in yourself to be true and the great things that happen to you and yada, 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 the sixth house then is like, what takes away from that? What makes that not as good? What is going to suck your first house energy dry? Because you have to deal with your sixth house. Just like you have to deal with every house, your sixth house is an issue. Like, there is hardly anyone I meet in the United States who does not have some sort of planet in their sixth house. And normally it's a malefic planet like Saturn or Mars. I'm seeing this because a lot of the sixth house, because it's Virgo, is about perfectionism. And as we're kids and we grow up, we're taught that we need to do certain things to please our parents, and if we don't do it, we don't get praise. We're definitely a culture that lives off of the praise of other people. So we do things, we work hard to get more praise. We're not getting any praise, we're going to work harder. We're not going to just chalk it up to like, I don't need this person to praise me, like you might in the first house. This is like, no, this is me, this is what I'm cultivating. This is what you cultivate to please other people. You end up working hard. You end up taking on too much of other people's shit. You suck in other people's energy. If you also think about the sixth house, it's the opposite of the 12th house. What is the 12th house but your subconscious and your subconscious energy, your head health, your subconscious health? It is the opposite then of your body health, which is your sixth house. And they take on the same idea of this empathetic approach to living, where you suck energy from other people in one way or another. You need things to sustain you there, because it really does. This house revolves around what other people think of you. You could have your sun on the sixth house and be like, I don't care what other people think of me. I just know that I do good work and I do it hard and I don't get much praise for it. Well, the fact that you know that you don't get much praise for it means that you're waiting for praise for it. Somebody who has a stellium in the first house or their sun in the first house is like never once brings up I don't get much praise, because they're constantly patting themselves on the back. As I said, the sixth house is like the completion of that, and it's leading into the seventh house, which is about relationships, but it's not quite there yet. It doesn't quite understand the give and take of a relationship. It understands what it needs to take. I'm being a dick about the sixth house, but it is kind of just this dick house. And if you think about it like this, I think it makes it a lot better to heal. You think about your fourth, you learned about, your home and your soul, and then your fifth house is all about being creative and the things that you're good at and that make you happy. And then all of a sudden life happens and you have to go to school. And that sucks, and that drains all of your physical energy out, because you're sitting in a desk when you'd much rather run around, because you were allowed to in the fifth house. You're allowed to sit on the floor and play Legos and roll Play-Doh and whatever you wanted to do. And then you had to go to school. The sixth house came and destroyed your childhood, basically. Ruined everything and pissed you off. Now, some people can handle it. Some people have planets in their sixth house that allow them to handle that. Sometimes that's Venus, but that can even mean you're too creative for the sixth house pleasures. Or you could have something like Saturn, which makes you really feel like you need to do it, but then eventually you could be one of those people who just wants to drop out, or you end up doing really well and being valedictorian, because Saturn kind of works both ways depending on what it's aspecting, but it kind of makes you miserable. Then you go to college or whatever you feel like, which is the ninth house, and then you have your career. But ultimately, whatever you do is day to day, and it's going back to your sixth house. How do you handle your day to day? How does that work for you? Someone with Uranus in the sixth house has no ability to stay still for a moment. You have Uranus in the sixth house and you're just like, I can't even, I gotta go run around, I gotta go find something. Is that air? I think I'm dying in this cubicle, I need air. And you are like, why can't I just be normal and have a 9-to-5 job? Because 9-to-5 jobs aren't normal. They're just society normal. You need something different. So you don't have any planets in the sixth house. Your sign that is there, that cusps the sixth house. I have Leo in the sixth house. I want to be the best, and I want people to worship me. Now, luckily for me, my husband also has Leo in the sixth house. So does my son, my sister, my brother. So like growing up and now in my own life, I surround myself with people who need to be the most important in their day-to-day life. That's good for me because I like the competition, and I think I win anyway, because Leo always just thinks they win. So you have Pisces in the sixth house. You might have psychosomatic illnesses, because if you think about Pisces, it rules your 12th house. It's Neptune, it's delusion, it's all the subconscious brain power, and you put that into the sixth house, the house of illness and health and day-to-day, and you might just constantly think that you are ill. Same thing goes to having Neptune in the sixth house. You can make up, you're like, oh, somebody has Ebola, somehow I got it just by thinking about it. But here's a Saturn in the sixth house. Normally Saturn in the sixth house comes from a father figure who didn't give you any sort of praise unless you did exactly what made them happy. And so you spend a lot of your time trying to figure out how to make them happy so that they would give you a, I'm proud of you, son, or I love you. And a lot of times you didn't even get that, so you ended up chasing nothing. But now let's say your son, this is your ego, your essence falls in the sixth house. You tend to say things like this: I could do that, but this would never allow this to happen, so I won't even try. I could definitely do that, but like your butt is like a big word for sun in the sixth house people. I've seen a lot of people with sun aspect in the sixth or sun in the sixth. Even my Leo in the sixth can do this. It's just self-defeating, like I'm a victim of my situation. There's no way I can rise above it. The world is bad and they're just trying to keep me down. And it's like, who's trying to keep you down? People in your head you made up. It takes a lot for you to force yourself out of this rut. Normally, you feel the need to heal the people around you, to be very important, that you're the central nerve for where you are. If it's at your job, you want to feel like you're very important there, and that you do everything and that that's important to you, place couldn't function without you. And so you get really irritated when people start acting like they could function without you. And most of the time, a sixth house sun is going to quit when they feel like the place doesn't need them anymore, or to prove a point when they're being treated like they don't need them anymore. Like, oh, you think you don't need me? I'm going to quit abruptly. You're going to realize you need me, and I'm going to move on. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how much work the sixth house sun does. It doesn't matter what they put on themselves or what they think they should be putting on themselves. All that matters is that they are being used, and they feel that the place they're with or the place they're at couldn't live without them. The one thing a sixth house sun needs to learn is that if you're doing something for yourself because you really want to do it, that's one thing. But don't act like the people around you really need you to do something. Just do it. Do what you need to do for yourself to make yourself happy and to make yourself proud of you. I know a lot of sixth house suns have big dreams. You know, you want to go and do a lot of things. You might say outwardly that, oh, yeah, you know, I would do that, but no, I'm not that ambitious. Or no, you know, I could be a model, but I would never want to have to live that life. You know, jet setting and coke addictions. It just doesn't sound appealing to me. And you might actually be half right, but the way you say it sounds like you want to do it really badly, but you're afraid that if you try and fail, you'd have to live with that, and you'd rather not, because then you're putting too much pressure on yourself. You don't mind other people putting pressure on you because you can blame it on them, but you don't want to put pressure on yourself, because then who do you blame? Like I said, it's this victimization house. Now, if your sun's in the sixth house, it could be really healthy. Some sun in the sixth house people work out a lot. They really enjoy it. They like taking care of themselves. And I've seen a lot of other suns in the sixth house people killing their body through smoking, drinking, like energy drinks, and not eating a lot, like shit like that, because they feel that they need to keep themselves down. If your sun's in the sixth house, I'm letting you know right now, you're the only person keeping you down. You want to go do something, you can do it at any time. But you're going to have to live with the consequences that you're the one who made the decision. No one is going to make it for you. The sixth house, if it's ruled by a sign, the planet that rules over that sign is also affected. So I have Leo in the sixth house. My sun is affected by the sixth house. My sun is in the seventh house. So that means that my seventh house of relationships has an illness from the sixth house. I've stayed in really shitty relationships for no fucking apparent reason. So if you have Taurus in the sixth house, where is your Venus? Is your Venus in the 10th house? Normally Venus in the 10th house means that, you know, you're looked on with a lot of love, and you move up in your career really fast. There's a lot of good, you know, lighting on you, and you're beautiful. But you have Taurus in the 6th house, so now there's an illness in your career, and you might stay in really shitty careers where they actually don't treat you that well. But once you get over the illness, it can be your house of health. You can make that all about you and being healthy and being strong and not being afraid of failing. Because afraid of failure is the #1 reason people don't achieve. You can't hide underneath this part of your chart forever. You got to go up here too. Second part of this series, we're going up at the top of your chart, and that is all about being out in the world. So far, we've just dove into this bottom half, and here's the 6th house, this is Cadent house, taking everything that we've learned so far and bringing it in. And if you are not healthy here, if you victimize yourself here, if you choose to drown in your own failure, you don't make it up here. You don't get the 7th house relationships, the 10th house public image, the 11th house ability to network, and the 12th house spiritual enlightenment. You're never going to get there because you're too afraid. I think that's the biggest 6th house lesson, is how to use it to step above your fear, to not worry that the world sucks. We all have a choice before we get out into the world, before we, leave our childhoods and enter adulthood and start dealing with all of the adulthood things. And the 6th house is where we make that choice. Do we choose to suffer in our heartache and silence, or do we choose to grow and work and become who we were born to be? Do we choose to eat whatever we want and kill our bodies with bad chemicals, or do we choose to live healthy lives? I mean, every one of us can blame something on somebody else. But that's great, because then we're a victim of somebody else's bad behavior. But being a victim is no way to live life. You see people who live as victims and they stay stagnant. We have all been victims in our lifetime. Some of us have gone through hell, some of us have gone through pain, but ultimately we have all been a victim of someone's bad behavior. But I prefer to see us as survivors. What does a victim do best? A victim can survive. And once you survive, you thrive. And that's when you can just look back and be like, remember that horrible obstacle that happened? I chose to rise above it. I always tweet these out a couple days after I give the video. So if you want to know what each planet means or the signs, just wait on my Twitter. It's linked below. You can read all about it there. Eventually that's all going to go up on my website in one easy to read blog. But until then, follow me on Twitter. Okay, thank you so much, you guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye.